The Sandown class minehunters are the latest mine countermeasure vessels currently in operation with the Royal Navy, as well as being exported to other nations. The design of these ships would also form the design basis for the Segura class MCMs of the Armada Española. The Sandowns would be designed as a small single-use minehunter, utilising a glass-reinforced plastic hull. The ships would be designed in the mid-80s, to start construction before the end of the decade, with the first units entering service in the early 1990s. The ship would be including a GLP hull, which was first tried on a Ton-class minehunter, HMS Wilton, and this would subsequently be able to create a vessel that had a minimal magnetic signature and would be subsequently brought into the design of the Hunt class. However, it was shown that the Hunt were more expensive due to their displacement than comparable sized vessels. Smaller ships would be more cost effective, and thus the Sandowns were born. Although they would still cost more than a steel-hulled minehunter. These ships would be lighter, but slightly harder to repair, but the trade-off would be one that the Navy would accept. The Sandowns were built in 2 batches, with all batches following the same principal design, bar the second batch who had facilities built in for female personnel. They were in the region of about 600 tons displacement, measuring 52.5 metres in length, 10.9 metres in beam, and draft was about 2.3 metres. The power plant would consist of a diesel-electric drive, which incorporates 2 diesel generators, providing power to 2 electric motors, powering the ship's rather unconventional Wolf-Schneider propellers for a speed of 13 knots and a range of 2,500 nautical miles. Additionally, the ships mount 2 bow thrusters. The idea for this propulsion is to give the ship a great station-keeping capability when in the vicinity of a mine. The ship is built of fiberglass and consists of one deck below the main deck plus a bilge, and above one deck there is a one deck and a bridge on a semi-raised section. The ship's complement is about 34 personnel, however this can be raised to about 40. The ship's facilities for warfare consist of a small ops room with 2 small hangars for her Sea Fox mine disposal system, as well as a decompression chamber for her divers. The ships are armed with a standard weapon loadout of 1. 30mm DS-30 Mike Mark II ASCG mount, located on the bow for self-defense. It has a remote operation, however can be used in local control. 2 L44A1 7.62mm GPMGs with a holographic sight. And finally, 3 Mark 44 7.62mm miniguns, again mounted with a holographic sight. The ships are fitted with a single radar, being the Type 1007 Navigational India Band radar. The first batch of the vessels would be HMS Sandown, Inverness, Cromer, Walney and Bridgeport, and they'd be built by Vosper Thornycroft in Southampton. Instead of being built like a normal warship, these vessels would be built in a large mould, similar to that of making a model vessel, and these vessels would be made in a mould with sections added to the ship as and when the construction progressed. Sandown was the first ship built, with the building process starting before 1988. She would be launched the same year and commissioned in 1989, a turnaround of about 2 to 3 years. However, this would continue with all Batch 1 vessels, with the last ship commissioned by 1993. After the launch of Bridgeport, there was a period of about 4 years between the Batch 2 vessels would actually be slid into the water. These vessels would be Penzance, Pembroke, Grimsby, Bangor, Ramsey, Blythe and Shoreham. However, in the intervening 4 years, Vosper would build 3 vessels for the Royal Saudi Navy. These would be the Al Juf, Shakra and Al Kaj. These vessels would be a good way to test new ways of enhancing the building process to save time and money. And as the construction progressed, the period from launch to commission started to drop from about a year and a couple of months to about a year, maybe just under a year. Throughout the 1990s, the ships in commission and those entering commission would, in retrospect, have a really quiet decade. Some highlights of the decade would see Sandown actually conduct the first of class trials. The sonar suite was tested and it proved not to be up to Navy requirements, but after a few months of testing and fixing, she would enter service. Operationally, Sandown was utilised by NATO in multiple operations in the wake of the Kosovo crisis, where she, alongside the Hunt-class MCMV, HMS Atherstone, and the survey ship HMS Bulldog, would see 18 bombs being defused by the minehunters. Aside from that, the rest of the class seemed to really be conducting local operations in European waters. By the first decade of the 21st century, it would see HMS Cromer reduced to a training ship in Dartmouth, similar to that of HMS Brecon in Raleigh. However, Cromer would be renamed to Hindustan and lose the HMS. And from this, she would be able to give officer cadets undergoing Phase 1 training a taste of what it's like to actually be on a warship. Other than that, Sandown would find a sunken scallop dredger in the year 2000, and the rest of the class would take part in Optelic, the UK military involvement in Iraq, and subsequent naval forward deployments into the Gulf region, whilst rotating for maintenance periods and exercises in the North Sea and Mediterranean Ocean. By 2005, the next batch of ships were to be decommissioned, with Sandown decommissioning in 2005, alongside Inverness and Bridgeport, being sold to Estonia in October 2006, as the Admiral Cowan, Sakala, and Ugandi. These ships would be refitted and modernised in Rosyth before making their way to Tallinn, where they'd be based for their careers in 2009. Whilst these ships are being decommissioned from Royal Navy service, Walney would find a mine while surveying the Mersey, and to everyone's shock, she, alongside the Atherstone, would dispose of the pesky £1,000 bomb. However, she wouldn't remain in service for much longer. By 2010, she was decommissioned and laid up at Portsmouth Naval Base, where she remains in Three Basin for sale. During the 2010s, the ships would see regular service in the Baltic, coastal waters, and the Arabian Gulf, with some noticeable highlights being Pembroke finding the wreck of the World War II era destroyer HMS Isis off Normandy. Not a great name by today's standards. Through the rest of the decade and into the 2020s, the ships would be forward deployed to HMS Jafar in Bahrain, with some excellent work being conducted in this region. The ships conduct about a 2.5-year deployment, with crew changes occurring every 3 to 6 months roughly. It would be here that Penzance would collide with HMS Chiddingfold whilst coming alongside Jafar. However, minimal damage was sustained to both vessels. Current open source reporting states that Walney, Ramsey and Blythe have been decommissioned, with the last two being slated to transfer to the Ukrainian Navy, with one more slated to be decommissioned in the near future. Currently, Bangor and Penzance are part of the 9th Mine Countermeasure Squadron and are forward deployed to the Gulf regions. Shoreham, Pembroke and Grimsby are currently part of the 1st Mine Countermeasure Squadron based out of Faslane in Scotland. All Estonian Sandowns are currently in active service and have had their 30mm guns replaced with a 25mm anti-aircraft gun. The Saudi Arabian Sandowns are rather unknown vessels, and even more unknown is their careers. However, it is stated they are currently in active service.